Good morning, everybody. Anybody come in the new hallways that are open for the first time today? And I'm just going to give you a little, update here before we jump into our message. It should be 2 months from now, we're doing this over there. And so we are getting close to that, and it is around the corner. And I'll tell you, there is a specific way you can help us between now and then. We have this thing called the 8 o'clock service. And if you look around this room, the room's pretty full. We have a lot of people who are coming, and we love that. We love to meet new people here. But if you, between now and when we open there, if you could come at 8 o'clock, that would be such a big help to free up some space and experience hassle-free parking at 8 o'clock. And, there's just the coffee is fresh and all those kind of things. Now, it is a family-friendly service, right? So we don't have the children and student things that go on during 9:30 and 11. But if you could help us out by doing that, that would be a big help. And it is not far away. So let's jump into our message for today. We're in a series called Walking with a Limp. What does that mean? That refers to sort of this picture, this metaphor, this image that all of us, to one degree or another, we're broken, that we have these things that bring us down, and none of us is as we should be. And yet God shows up in the middle of stories of people like that, and that would include all of us. And today we're going to take a look at this title, Between a Rock and a Heaven Place, and hopefully that title here makes sense as we go along through this story. But we're tracking with a man by the name of Jacob. And last week, we began to see just his character and his nature. Now, names in the Bible are a big deal. Many times those names indicate what would be a part of their life or indicate kind of where the direction of their life was going. Do you know what Jacob means? Jacob literally means deceiver. Imagine going through life with that name. How'd you get your name? My name comes from my parents who came from another country, and one of the things they didn't like here is the way that all names seem to get shortened. And so they gave me a name that could not be shortened, Roy. And so Pastor Jimmy adds to it, and it's Royster and a whole bunch of other things, and I won't tell my parents, it'd be a whole thing there. But how did you get your name? And maybe there's a meaning behind it. Maybe your parents like the sound of it, or maybe it's a family name. How would you like to go through life with a name that means deceiver? And that is Jacob, and he is true to his name. And we saw this last week where he is deceptive and takes advantage of a situation when his older brother, they are fraternal twins. Esau is the older one and Jacob is the younger one, and they are not alike at all. Esau is the strapping, athletic, outdoor guy. Jacob is more the homebody and spending time indoors. And get this, in this dynamic of this family, dad favors Esau, the oldest one. Mom favors Jacob, the younger one, and they're sort of plotting against each other. I mean, what could go wrong in that scenario? And the answer is a lot can go wrong. And I think it raises a really important question for us, even, before we jump into today's story. Can people really change? I mean, really? It's one thing, to go on a diet, or to change a habit, here and there, and we all have some experience with that. But I'm talking about at a deeper level in our heart and our soul, the things that motivate us and drive us, the things that we care about and see as ultimately important. Can people really change? Or are we who we are? And it's one of the age-old questions, that we wrestle with in this world. Can a leopard change its spots? And in the story of Jacob, if you think that people can't change, I hope that you will stay with us for this entire journey. Because we're going to see the deceiver change. We're even going to see his name change. But today, we're going to see another step in his journey along that path. But just a little recap from last week. So here are these fraternal twins, and there was this issue in that culture at that time called the birthright. And the birthright is something given to the oldest son when he is born. He didn't earn it, didn't deserve it, it's just given to him. And with the birthright, there came additional wealth at inheritance time. There was additional influence and power because they got to decide and basically be the judge for the family. And there was also this blessing from God, that God was going to be with you in a special way. And so Jacob, who's home, has his brother come in from the field, and he is famished. I am starving. And younger brother, who's a deceiver, says, hey, I'll make you a trade. I'll trade you a bowl of stew for your birthright. And older brother Esau does exactly that. And Jacob is true to his name. And on the other side of that, you know what? We see it show up again. And right before we jump into today's story, here's what happens. Isaac is now on his deathbed. He's blind. He knows that his time is very short. And he favors his older son, Esau, and so he calls him in, wants to give him a deathbed blessing, which was also a common cultural thing. And he says, hey, go out into the field, catch some game, make that meal that you know that I enjoy and bring it, and then I will bless you. Well, mom overhears this. And so she goes to Jacob, who she favors, says, hey, your dad is about to give your brother the blessing, so why don't you go out into the herd, get a goat, and I'll make the meal. You take it in, and you put on your brother's clothes, and you act like him. Your dad is blind, and, he's frail, and he's near the end, and you get the blessing. And so that's what he does. And so he's got his brother's clothes on. He's got the meal that his mom made, and he walks into his dad. And look at how this plays out. Jacob said to his father, I am Esau, your firstborn. Flat out lying. And when Isaac asks him, hey, I sent you out into the field not that long ago. How'd you come with a meal so quickly? And Jacob responds on the fly, well, the Lord your God, help me and put that into my path. The first time we see God's name come out of Jacob's mouth, it is part of a lie to deceive his father. Jacob said to his father, I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done as you told me. Please sit up and eat some of the game so that you may give me your blessing. And so he eats the stew. He's still a little bit unsure about that. He says, hey, come closer. He can't see, but he grabs a hold of him and kind of smells his clothing in the outdoors because he's wearing his brother's clothes. And he goes, okay, you must be Esau. And he gives him his blessing. Well, Esau then comes in later and goes, hey, Dad, I got the game and I made the meal. And Isaac's like, what are you talking about? I already gave my blessing. Who was that? That was Jacob. How does Esau respond on the other side of that? Check this out. Esau held a grudge against Jacob because of the blessing his father had given him. He said to himself, the days of mourning for my father are near. Then I will kill my brother Jacob. This family is in trouble, right? There are all kinds of dynamics that are running around all of that. And so now when Jacob finds out, my brother wants to kill me, what is a man to do? He runs and takes off and goes to another place. And that's where we jump into this story. Genesis 28:10. Jacob left Beersheba, that's where they were, and set out for Haran. That's about 500 miles away. And in those days, you travel with your own 2 feet. It would take him months to get there. Why is he doing this? He's running for his life due to the consequences of his own actions, his own deceit. When he reached a certain place, why is it called that? So many places in the Bible have a name. You know why this place doesn't have a name? Because there's nothing there. This is literally the middle of nowhere. He stopped for the night because the sun had set. That could also be translated like heaven became dark. Taking one of the stones there, he put it under his head and lay down to sleep. So get this picture. He's in the middle of nowhere. He has absolutely nothing. When you have a stone for a pillow, you are penniless. You got nothing. And heaven has gone dark. And I wonder in Jacob's mind if he's thinking this, hey, I got the birthright, and with the birthright comes this sense that God is going to bless me. I just had my father bless me, but my brother wants to kill me now, and I'm on the run for my life. Where are all the promises of God? Where is God's presence in my life? Why am I here in this moment, in this place, in the middle of nowhere, and it's about as dark as it can get? See, I think Jacob is at a place where many of us find ourselves, and there are moments in life where we may wonder this too, where God is confusing. And we say, God, I read about who you are, and I read about the promises that there are together with you, but it looks like my situation right now, my circumstances are not playing out that way, and not the way that I would want them, and not the way that they should be based on what I read about you. And so, God, where are you? And also, it seems like God is very disengaged. God's like a million miles away. Heaven is dark. Heaven is closed off. God is nowhere to be seen in my moment here. I'm at my lowest moment. And what this helps us to understand is that he grew up in a home where he heard about God, but he had not yet encountered God. He had not had an experience that would help him to know that God is real and God is personal. And maybe he even believed that God existed, but he'd never experienced him in a personal kind of way. And so here he is. He's not seeking God. He's not calling out to God. He's not praying to God. And I think he wrestles with some of the things that we do when we encounter those hard moments. And look at what happens that night. He had a dream in which he saw a stairway resting on earth with its top reaching to the heaven. And the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. He's going to see three things. Two of them are right here. He sees a stairway. And this is not a small, narrow staircase. This is a wide, sort of grand staircase. And it is, just huge. And what is happening on it? Angels of God are ascending and descending. And the pearl here gives the idea. There's a lot going up and there's a lot coming down. And they're going out into the world. Now, what does an angel look like? And I'm going to ask you to set aside your Hallmark greeting card vision of what angels look like, where they're little babies in diapers shooting, arrows of love into people. Because in the Bible, every time an angel shows up, do you know what the angel says? Fear not. You know why? Because people are afraid. That's why. And do you know why they're afraid? Because angels are these created beings that are the heralds of God. They are the messengers of God. And there are even times where we are told that they are carrying out and executing some of the decrees and some of the work of God in this world. Sometimes you see them doing battle with the forces of evil. I mean, angels are large, and in many ways they are in charge. And so in this moment, that's what's going up and down here. But the picture is heaven is not closed. In a moment where the curtain is drawn back, heaven is open. And he gets to see a staircase. Why? It's as if there's this link between heaven and earth. And the messengers of God are going up and they're coming down and they're going out into the world all around him. And then look at what else he sees. There above it stood the Lord, and he said, I am the Lord, the God of your father Abraham and the God of Isaac. So he sees a stairway, he sees angels, and he sees the Lord God. And this is a little difficult to translate. In there it says he stood above it, meaning that staircase, and it could also be translated beside it. It could also mean standing above him. But whatever the proximity amount is, get this picture that God has now come to him in the middle of nowhere with nothing to his name and made himself known. I don't know if you grew up with a group called Led Zeppelin, and they sing a song, She's Buying a Stairway to Heaven. This is not that. This is the opposite of that. This is not a stairway to heaven, but if you notice, what is Jacob doing? Nothing. This is God coming to him. This is the stairway from heaven that has come from heaven down to earth to let one man at his lowest point know that God is near. Think about this. He's friendless in this moment. The only person who loves him at this point in his life is his mother, who schemed together with him. He will not see her alive again. He is also defenseless. He's got nothing. He's got the clothes on his back, and he is also destitute. And God shows up right there in that moment. I think this helps us understand some really important things about the nature of God and our journey toward God and with God. Here's a couple things. God's proximity is closer than you think. Because the reality is, we may think, well, there are special places you can go to meet with God. God is anywhere and everywhere. And so anywhere, when we recognize that God is there, you know what? That's the experience that we can have there. Because God shows up in the middle of the night at Jacob's lowest point. So what does that mean for people like us? Sometimes we're in the middle of waiting for whatever it might be. And we think, well, God, you're not here. I'm just biding time. He's there. And sometimes we are in the middle of our loneliness and wondering, God, when are you going to, get at work in that? And he's right there in the middle of that. And in our struggles and sometimes even in our suffering, God is there as well. Because we often, kind of make it and put it together this way, that when life is good, and I've had a good day, God is closer to me and he loves me more. And on the days I'm not doing so well, he's further away and likes me a little bit less. This story tells us that's not the truth at all. God is there with you in the middle of your brokenness. But sometimes we're just not even aware of it. We're just running and dealing with our own stuff, and it's taken us to the middle of nowhere. But even there, God is close to you. Also, this helps us understand God's presence is not tied to your performance. And you see that in Jacob's life, right? He's not saying, God, I've made so many mistakes. God, would you help me to change my ways? God, just show me who you are. He's not doing any of that. And God comes to him. And it can be a real dangerous thing that we tie God's presence to our performance, thinking that somehow we unlock the door of heaven. Heaven came down to earth because God brought it down. And the other thing this helps us know is that God's power is working even when we don't see it. And we look at this world of ours today, and there's so much that is not the way that it should be. And sometimes we can even give up hope and thinking, God, where are you in the middle of this? Where is all this going? And what did Jacob see? The power of God was going up and down into the world. And God was close by. And God stands over him. Maybe like a parent over a child when they're sleeping. And God is in the middle of that place. Well, then he also hears three things. I will give you, this is God speaking, I will give you and your descendants the land on which you were lying. Your descendants will be like the dust of the earth, and you will spread out to the west and to the east, to the north and to the south. All the people on earth will be blessed through you and your offspring. I am with you to the friendless, and watch over you to the defenseless. Wherever you go, and I will bring you back to this land. I'm taking you somewhere. I'm taking you somewhere good. I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. So what does that mean to people like us? It means that God can transform you from who you are now to who you can be with him. That people really can change. And what begins that journey in Jacob's life to that direction is this first awareness that God is here. I used his name in a way to lie and deceive and to cheat. But God is here and inviting me to come to him. And see, he grew up in a home where the name of God was out there. I'm sure he heard the name of God all the time because God had promised his grandfather Abraham and then his father Isaac, and there were all these promises, and I'm sure they talked about God. It's one thing to believe that God exists. It's another thing to believe God and to be in a relationship with him. Those two things are not the same, but now for the first time, he has an encounter with God. And look at the difference on the other side of this. When Jacob awoke from his sleep, he thought, surely the Lord is in this place, and I was not aware of it. It's as if the light comes on a little bit. He's like, man, God was here. I'm sure God was there, not applauding what I was doing. But here at my lowest point, God's here too. I just didn't know it. And now he's awake to the reality that God is there. And not just out there, that God is close beside him. And maybe what we need to do in some of our days that come along is to remember and to recognize that God is there. So I want you to do something. This is a bit of an unusual application here. I've got my phone. I know you have your phone. Take it out, and I'm going to invite you to go to the calendar on your phone. Let's do this together. And as we do this, iPhone users, you'll get there right away. Android users, customer service is there and available to you. It's going to take you a little longer, but we will wait for you. But here's what I want you to do on your calendar, on your phone. I want you to pick just randomly a day between today and Thanksgiving. It's the fourth Thursday in November. And I want you just to punch on that day. And somewhere in the hours of that day, I want you maybe to put this line that Jacob says, surely the Lord is in this place and I was not aware of it. Or maybe you just want to write like what I did, that God is here, and God is close. And when that day comes up and that reminder comes up, I wonder, maybe it's going to be a good day. Maybe it's going to be a horrible day. Maybe it's going to be one of the many days that's in between. But whatever it is, I hope it can serve as a reminder to us. That's right. No matter where I am, no matter what I'm doing, no matter what kind of day it is, you know what? God is here with me. God is close. God is close. And God is here. Well, notice this now. He, Jacob, was afraid and said, "How awesome is this place? This is none other than the house of God. This is the gate of heaven." So what is he saying? Here's where the door to heaven is here in the middle of nowhere. That's not what he's saying. He's basically communicating to us, now I get it. This is how heaven works. And here's what's electric about that phrase, the gate of heaven. It's not the first time that it has come up in the book of Genesis. We're in chapter 28. But if you go back to Genesis chapter 11, there's a time when humanity is building this huge tower all the way to heaven, and that is called the Tower of Babel. Babel translates to gate of heaven. So here was humanity saying, you know what? We're going to build a stairway. We're going to ascend to heaven. We're going to reach, our way into the presence of the gods. And here in this moment, Jacob said, now I get it. We don't build our stairway to heaven, but heaven comes down to earth. And the stairway comes purely by the grace of God. In the moments when somebody wasn't looking for it, wasn't asking for it, didn't get their act together, heaven came down into the middle of the brokenness and the darkness of one man's world. And it comes down to you and me as well. And invites us to recognize it's all grace. It's all grace from beginning to end. But I think it leaves us with a question because we go, okay, what about the holiness of God? Because here's a guy who has been nothing but a scoundrel to this point. What about that? God, are you saying that everything's okay and even people who cheat, and get away with it, that's okay? We really don't fully understand what this means until a later time in the Bible. And if you think the Bible is a collection of just random stories that don't have a lot to do with each other, you're wrong. And the Bible has this arc, this one story that is over all of it from beginning to end. And it is a story about the love and the grace of God that has come to your rescue. Because if you fast forward now 2,000 years from this moment, here is Jesus now on the scene. And some people have started to experience him. One of them is a man named Philip, and Philip has a friend named Nathaniel. And he goes to Nathaniel and he says, "Hey, Nathaniel, come and meet the guy that we believe is the Messiah, the one that God has long promised, the one who was going to come to our rescue." And they get to where Jesus is from, and he goes, "Well, he's from Nazareth." And Nathaniel says, "Can anything good come out of Nazareth?" It's kind of, I guess, the New Jersey of the first century. I don't know. Can anything good come from there? And he says, "Well, come and see. Just come and see. Check it out." And sure enough, Nathaniel comes along with Philip, and there's Jesus, and Jesus sees him coming, and he looks at him, and he goes, "There's an Israelite in whom there is no guile, no deception." And Nathaniel says, "Yeah, my people talk about me as a straight shooter and all of that. How do you know me?" And Jesus says to him, "Nathaniel, I saw you under the fig tree." And Nathaniel's response is, "Truly you are the Son of God." And wouldn't you like to know what happened under the fig tree? Me too. It's not there. So was he with somebody, or was he wrestling with something, or was he just churning in his own heart and mind? We don't know. But whatever it is, Jesus knew about it, and Nathaniel knew that Jesus knew, and he said, "You're the Son of God." And then look at what happens next. Jesus said, "You believe because I told you I saw you under the fig tree. You will see greater things than that." Well, what's greater than that? He then added, "Very truly I tell you, you will see heaven open and the angels of God ascending and descending on the Son of Man." This is a goosebump moment in the Bible, when Jesus is in essence saying what Jacob saw was ultimately me, Jesus speaking. There is a link between heaven and earth, and it's Jesus. Heaven ultimately came down in Jesus. And do you notice he says those angels are descending not to the Son of Man, on the Son of Man. What is he saying? In essence, he's the stairway. He's the link. He is the one who bridges the gap between heaven and earth and comes all the way down into broken humanity and in the darkness of this world. And it's all grace. It's all grace. None of it is deserved. And sometimes we think, even when we come to Jesus, we think, okay, well, it's nice, God, that you came in this direction. So, is it up to me? Do I meet you halfway? Do I even, put my part into it? This tells us, no, it is 100% grace from beginning to end. Heaven came all the way down and came down to show us the heaven is open. And the one who opens it is none other than Jesus. And it is entirely by his grace. And what Jesus is telling us here is in the darkness and brokenness of this world, he punched a hole in that and brings the light of God. And all who put hope and trust in him and his grace belong to him. See, a lot of times we think we got to ascend our way into the good graces of God. But the reality is the grace of God has come all the way down to us. And Jesus is basically, letting us know that heaven and earth intersect over his crucified and resurrected body. That's how heaven is open. That's the gate of heaven. Jesus is the gate of heaven. So what does this mean? Heaven is not about a way, but it's about a who. That it's about Jesus. And him coming all the way down to reach someone like you and me. So we're going to end our service a little bit different today. On the first Sunday of every month, we have communion. And communion is something Jesus instituted, and it tells us that the bread represents his body, and the juice in the cup represents his blood that was shed so that we could be forgiven. And it seemed like today our time in communion just flows so naturally out of this story of God's grace coming all the way down. Because if you want to look at the ultimate expression of heaven coming down, it is seen in what Jesus did for us on a cross. Standing in our place, heaven coming all the way down to your place and mine. And standing there and taking what was rightfully my punishment and yours. And so in the next few moments, I hope and pray that we would see that for what it is. That it's all grace. That what we're about to experience, that's how heaven opens. It's not up to you and me, not even one little bit. But heaven came down. And Jesus is the stairway. And so I'm going to invite you to bow your heads together with me. And so, Lord Jesus, as we spend these next few moments, God, you and you alone know what every one of us needs, where each one of us is. God, would you meet us all here? Would you give us an encounter together with you? And God, for some of us, we look at the circumstances of our life and we wonder where you are, and it seems very confusing to read about a good God, but to see our life playing out in a way that doesn't seem good, and we wonder where you are. Help us to know here and now, in these communion elements, this is the ultimate expression of you coming all the way down to us and making it so personal. And God, sometimes we make the mistake of tying our performance to where we stand with you. And God, would you show us it's all grace. And that even on our good days and bad days, you cannot love us more and you will not love us less. The ultimate expression of your love is in these elements that represent you being willing to stand in our place. And God, sometimes we look at the world in which we live and we wonder, where are you? And where is all this going? But help us to see the power of God is at work. We often cannot see it from our perspective. But God, you're working and you're moving and you're doing things that only you can do. And God, maybe in these next few moments, it is the first time to take that step of faith and trust and to just say, I'm trusting the grace that came all the way down to me. Heaven has come down. Jesus is the way. And the way to be right with God is not a way, it's a who. And so I put my trust in what Jesus did for me in my place. So Lord, meet each one of us here. May these moments be about giving the honor and the glory where it is due, and that is to you and to you alone. Thank you for your grace. We ask and pray this all in Jesus' name. Amen.